Hey guys, Jonathan Mosette here for JM Sports 100, the JM Sports Show. How is it going? I'm here to make NFL picks for Week 1 in the 2018 NFL season, and I'm going to do things a little bit differently this year than the way I have in years past. I'm going to try to divide these into two parts. So basically, part one, this video is going to be all the games that take place in the 1 o'clock Eastern time slot, and then in part two we will have the later games, and then the Sunday and Monday games will also be thrown into that video as well. So this is going to be the early games, the early slate for Week 1 on Sunday. We will talk first, though, a little bit about the game last night, which we did pick right. We picked it on Facebook. We did have the Eagles getting the win, and it was a tough battle, and really the Eagles defense, they bent towards the end of that game. It was pretty dramatic. They bent, but they did not break, and they were able to come away with the 18-12 win. So we are 1-0 on the year. As far as record from last year, I don't quite know how I'm going to handle that yet, because to be honest, I didn't pay much attention to it. As you guys know, I did most of my picking last year on Facebook, so I may just kind of call last year a wash and say it didn't happen. So I'm actually not going to have a record ready for this video, because I'll have to figure out, um, I'll have to subtract the games that I did add and then figure out what the overall record is. But we are 1-0 on the year for this year. Of course, these picks are all straight up. And so basically how this works, I'm going to talk about a game, and then I will pause the video, kind of come back, and then talk about the next game. So here we go. When we come back, we are going to start with the Buffalo Bills. Oh, by the way, another thing I also do as well down in the description is I will put where I started talking about a game. So, like, for example, the first game we're going to do is the Bills and the Ravens here in just a second. I will put down there, I will timestamp down in the description when that took place. So then you can just click on that and then go to the team you want. And then at the end of part two, I'll just go through all the picks again quickly at the end of the part two. So when we come back, we'll take a look at our first game of the year, our first game for Sunday anyway, and that is the Bills and the Ravens. So here we are, set to take a look at the game between the Bills and the Ravens, and that game is going to take place at 1 o'clock Eastern Time on CBS on Sunday. So there you go. And in this game, the Bills, obviously the big news in this one, having drafted Josh Allen. They don't think that Josh Allen is ready, and therefore they're going to go with Nathan Peterman. Now, when I think of Peterman, Peterman had a decent preseason. In the preseason, he went 33 of 41 for 431 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 1 pick. But let's be honest, that's probably not what we remember Nathan Peterman for. We remember the 5 interceptions that he threw in the first half in his NFL debut against the Chargers. And I think that's what you're more likely to get. I'm not looking at Peterman's preseason stats and going, wow, maybe he is decent. You can't really take much away from preseason more times than not. Brock Osweiler moved the ball this preseason, so teams can move the ball in the preseason, so you can't look too much into that. As far as the Bills, they made the playoffs last year. They ended the playoff drought. That was with Tyrod Taylor. I just don't see this team being a playoff team. There's too many questions, offensively especially. I just I don't see anything special from this Bills team. Plus, on this Ravens side, listen, I think this Ravens team is a bit underrated coming into this year. I've seen some highlights of them this preseason. I thought they looked pretty good. I think as long as Joe Flacco stays healthy, I think he's in for a good year. Plus, they have Lamar Jackson and RG3 as backups. The Ravens did keep 3 quarterbacks on the roster, so that's what that situation looks like for them. And the Ravens owner and both the Ravens owner and Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome won't say it. They won't say that it's playoff or bust for John Harbaugh, but I will. I believe it could be playoff or bust for John Harbaugh. So I think this team plays hard. And I really do think that the Ravens defense is going to create problems for Nathan Peterman and the Buffalo Bills. I think the Bills take a pretty big step back this year, And I do think Josh Allen does see playing time at some point in time this season. He's the only other quarterback on their roster right now. And I do see a time where he plays, but they don't think he's ready yet, and he's probably not, but I think he does play at some point in time this year. Right now, though, this is Nathan Peterman's team, and I don't know how that's going to go. It's not going to go well on Sunday. I've got the Ravens getting the win, and next up, we will take a look at the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts with a returning Andrew Luck. And we are back, and we will now take a look at the game between the Cincinnati Bengals and the Indianapolis Colts. I'm not going to do times just because of what I had said before. You guys will know what time slot this is in, so based on the part of the video that you're watching. But so the big story in this game, obviously, is that after 19 months, it's been 19 months since Andrew Luck played a snap of NFL football, he is back. And I do think that's obviously an improvement for this Colts team. The question is, can he stay healthy? The question is, with this offensive line, because that was the issue before, that's why he had gotten hurt, the wear and tear that he had taken, because he had an offensive line that couldn't hold him up. They made some changes this year that could potentially help that out. I do think it will be a bit improved for them. They drafted Quentin Nelson, and a lot of people think that Quentin Nelson, there's no way that he can bust. He looked really good in the preseason as well. So with stuff like that, hopefully the Colts offensive line can hold Andrew Luck up a little bit better. But this is going to be a big opportunity for a big chance, really, for the Colts to see what they have. They're going up against a tough defensive line with guys like Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, both guys who can definitely get to the quarterback. And if you don't think that Cincinnati is going to be bringing pressure in this game to try to rattle Andrew Luck, you have got another thing coming. However, I think this game ultimately could become potentially a bit of a shootout. I think it really could. I'm not a huge Andy Dalton fan. I've never been a huge Andy Dalton fan, but we all know that the Bengals do have guys like AJ Green. They do have some offensive weapons that they can do big things with, and you've got T.Y. Hilton over on the side for the Colts. He and Andrew Luck, I think, are going to have a big year being able to hook up again if Andrew Luck can stay healthy. I do think at the end of the day the Colts get the win, though, in this football game. But like I said, I do think it could end up being a shootout, and I do think Andrew Luck has a pretty good return to the NFL. And in the next segment, we will take a look at the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. So that'll be right about now. So next up, we will take a look at the matchup between the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cleveland Browns. And obviously you've got the Browns, who are coming off of an 0-16 season last season. And they've got Tyrod Taylor, who I think is a good fit for them. I think this Browns team, obviously after going 0-16 and going 1-15 the year before that, they knew they needed to make some changes. And they did a lot of that. There are 31 players on this Browns roster that were not on this team a season ago. So the changes are coming. Hugh Jackson's hot seat is just that, hot. It's incredibly hot. Hugh Jackson needs to win. The thing is, with the Pittsburgh Steelers on their end, obviously, the big deal there is they have no Le'Veon Bell. And that is huge. And that is it's going to be no easy task for them to go without Bell. Now, I know that there's a lot of tension right now in the Pittsburgh locker room amongst his teammates with, he's not here, he's kind of letting us down. It'll be interesting to see if the Steelers can get that out of their heads and focus on this game, because the Browns, I think, are sneaky. They're improved. They're definitely improved. Are they a playoff team? I don't think so. Are they a wild card team? I don't think so. But I think they are a team that is strong enough to definitely play an upset card. They're a team that you are not going to be able to go into a game against the Browns like you could in years past and go, well, okay, it's just the Browns. We've got this. You're not going to be able to do that this year, and you definitely shouldn't do it in the AFC North, a division that is known for tight games as it is. The interesting thing for the Browns is going to be this. To me, I don't think Baker Mayfield is ready. Obviously, the Browns don't either at this point because they're going with Tyrod Taylor. However, we know that the Browns organization is very, very impatient, and if Tyrod Taylor struggles, I could definitely see a situation where Browns owner Jimmy Haslam goes, okay, I've seen enough, put in Baker. It'll be interesting to see, and I honestly think at some point in time it does happen. I don't quite know when. I'm interested to find out when, but I do think it does happen. But along with Tyrod Taylor, it's not those aren't the only nice acquisitions that the Browns got. They went out and got they got Jarvis Landry, they got Carlos Hyde. There are some good offensive pieces here for the Browns. The Browns defense is I don't think the Browns defense is going to be terrible. This Browns team is turning it around. The question is, are they going to find a way to do what the Browns do and mess it up, or are they actually looking to build something here? Is there something here to be built? Meanwhile, like I said, you look at the Pittsburgh Steelers, no Le'Veon Bell. That is huge. I do think he plays at some point in time this year. I just don't know when, and I don't know how well received he's going to be in that locker room when he does come back. The good news for the Steelers, however, though, Antonio Brown has been a little bit nicked up. He's had a hip issue, he's had a groin issue. It looks like he will be good to go. They will need him. I do think that the Browns, as I said, will be improved this year, but I think they hit a bit of a roadblock a bit this week. I do have the Steelers getting the win. So, next up on the list, we will take a look at the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins. So, here we are to take a look at the matchup between the Tennessee Titans and the Miami Dolphins. There's not really much to say about this game. Honestly, there really is, and I don't think either one of these teams are going to blow anyone away this season. Mike Vrabel is now at the helm for the Titans. I do understand that the Titans were a playoff team last year. I don't think they're a playoff team this year. I like Marcus Mariota. I do. I don't love him. I like him. I think you can win games with him. I'm not sure that you are going to make a deep playoff run with him. I'm not sure you can win a Super Bowl with him, but I do like him. And then, of course, on Miami's side, you've got Ryan Tannehill returning off of the knee injury. Will he be what he was? Like, I see stuff in him. I see something not exceptionally special, but I see something special enough in him. The question is, will he still have it? Of course, the big acquisition for Miami was getting Danny Amendola. So that'll be a new target for him to use. Obviously, Jarvis Landry is gone, as we mentioned previously. He is now in Cleveland. That is a big loss that Miami took. Landry even came out and ripped the organization in the offseason for the culture in the locker room, which there's also a lot of people that wonder what this Miami Dolphins identity is as a team. There's a lot of people that don't know, and they do wonder. Miami does have some good stars like Cameron Wake and things like that, but I just don't see this Miami team being very competitive this year. I do think that this game is ugly. I really do, because I don't see the Titans being as competitive either. So I do think we do see an ugly football game here, but I have the Tennessee Titans getting the victory. This is taking a little longer than I would like, so I'm going to kind of try to rip through these a little bit faster from now on. Next up, we have the Houston Texans and the New England Patriots. And to me, this Patriot team is not, doesn't feel like a normal Patriot team. Now, what does that necessarily mean? They feel weaker to me, I think. And normally, when you say about a football team, you're like, well, this team feels weaker, they're probably going to have a down year. Who knows? You've got Tom Brady, who's 45 years old and is probably going to play for another 35 years, and you've got Bill Belichick, who is a genius. So who knows what this team is going to get? But they have no Danny Amendola, they have no Brandon Cooks. They both those guys are gone on different teams. They've got Julian Edelman, who is out for the first 4 games due to a suspension. So this Patriots team just feels different. What do they have? And the Patriots are kind of known as a slow starting team a little bit. So this could be an upset situation here. You've got Deshaun Watson, who was having a phenomenal rookie campaign last year before it got cut short with the ACL injury. And you've also got J.J. Watt back healthy on that Texans defense, which is huge. Huge. Obviously, we've got DeAndre Hopkins, Will Fuller on offense. Houston has a lot of talent in here. I do think that there is a potential for an upset, but I don't feel comfortable enough to call it. If the game was in Houston, maybe I would call it. Patriots just don't lose at Foxborough. That just doesn't happen. The Tom Brady does not lose against the Texans. I believe he is 7-1 in his career. And that actually that might be. I have to go back and look at that. So I do apologize. I'll put it in an annotation up here and make sure that I have that right. Um, but I do think that the Patriots get the win, but I do think the game could be close. Like I said, Patriots kind of known as slow starters. Week 1 can kind of trip them up a bit sometimes, and it'll be interesting to see how this game goes. Next up, we will take a look at the matchup between the Bucks and the Saints. Both teams have key pieces out due to suspension. For the Saints, it's running back Marvin Ingram. He will miss 4 games, and then you have Jameis Winston, of course, missing 3 games for the Bucks. Now, whether or not you call Jameis Winston a key piece, who knows? I'm a little bit iffy on that. I'm hot and cold on him, and right now I think honestly the Bucks probably are too, as far as their future goes. You've got a Saints team that, however, though, still has Alvin Kamara. They still have Drew Brees. They will be just fine. This is a team, also, you have to believe that is going to come out a bit on fire. Of course, the heartbreaking loss to the Vikings in the playoffs last year, it isn't going to sit well with them. Now, here is a thing that they also have for receiver Michael Thomas, a breakout season last season, 104 receptions for over 1,000 yards. And I do think that he is going to be a big key in this game. I think the initial thought was to hopefully have Brent Grimes attempt to cover him. However, it looks like Brent Grimes is probably not going to play in this game, so that could be big. That could mean that Michael Thomas has himself a monster game. The one thing Tampa Bay does have going for them, though, positively, their defensive line does seem a bit stronger now. You've got Gerald McCoy on there, you've got JPP, you've got Bo Allen, you've got Vinny Curry. So this defense could be improved on the defensive line, and Tampa Bay definitely needs that. Tampa Bay, though, their schedule, their first 3 games is absolutely brutal. You've got the Saints in this week, then you've got the Eagles and the Steelers, all division winners from a season ago. That is a tough, tough road for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. By the way, it will be Ryan Fitzpatrick at the helm for them. I don't think things start out well for the Bucks. I think this year for the Bucks could be a bit disastrous, and I also think that this is the year that the Bucks need to figure out if Jameis Winston is their future or if he is not their future. I've got the Saints getting the win. I do think the Saints are probably one of the top 3 best teams in football this year, and I do have them getting the opening day victory. Next up, we have the San Francisco 49ers and the Minnesota Vikings. Kirk Cousins is now at the helm in Minnesota, and he signed a massive, massive deal. And yes, that is an improvement over Case Keenum, obviously. However, I do think it could take some time. Of course, the Vikings have a new offensive coordinator, obviously a new quarterback in Cousins. It could take some time for them to gel. I do think it's a positive sign for them that they did look pretty good at times in the preseason, but from what I saw, it wasn't sustained very well. It was just kind of here and there, and that's kind of a situation that they will have to avoid. And with time, things will obviously get better for them. Meanwhile, you have Jimmy Garoppolo. So quarterbacks, a big deal in this game right here. Jimmy Garoppolo, 5-0. for the Niners last year, 7-0 in his career, and so the Niners went from a 1-10 team when he took over to a 6-10 team at season's end. Obviously, we know that Jimmy Garoppolo is very good. He will have to be very good. He faces a very, very good Vikings defense. We all know how good the Vikings defense was last year. They led the NFL in total scoring, in total defense and scoring defense, and 10 of those players are back this year. So the Vikings defense looks to be very, very potent again. That could give Jimmy G some troubles. Um, and plus, on the defensive side, you've got Everson Griffin, stuff like that. Not real sure that the Niners' offensive line is up for holding that up. The running game could struggle for the Niners this year. They lost Jerick McKinnon to injury just a while back, so he is done for the year. And speaking of injuries to running backs, as far as on the Vikings end, you've got Dalvin Cook coming back from an injury. It'll be interesting to see how he does. Uh, I do think he could have a big game because I think there's a lot of questions with this 49ers defense. You've got Elvis Dumerville gone, Reuben Foster gone, so I think there's a lot of questions for this whole Niner team. Are they going to be able to compete in a couple of years? Yes. Is Jimmy Garoppolo going to win them some games this year? Probably. Are they ready to compete in what is a decent NFC West? And by decent, I mean you've got the Rams, and I think the Rams are the best team in the definitely. Well, they're definitely the best team in the West. Probably one of the best teams in the NFL. Are they going to be able to compete with the Rams for the West title this year? No, I don't think so. I think they're close, but they're not quite there. They really need to figure out some of their defensive stuff. And I do think that the Vikings get the win. I think Garoppolo will suffer his first loss this weekend. I do just want to clarify a couple of things I said quickly before we get to the next game as far as Reuben Foster. Reuben Foster, of course, suspended. Elvis Dumerville did retire. Also for the Niners, too, really quick. I didn't really mention it because I don't know what to expect from him. And, of course, the Niners also do have Richard Sherman. It'd be interesting to see how he plays as well. But I think the Vikings offense just has a bit too much right now with Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs and Kirk Cousins and Dalvin Cook. There's too much there. I think this Vikings team is really good. I don't think they're as good as they were last year, but I do think they are pretty good. And now we will take a look at the final game for this video, and that is going to be the Jacksonville Jaguars and New York Giants. So in the final game of Part 1, we'll take a look at the matchup between the Jags and the Giants. The Giants, of course, drafted Saquon Barkley in the first round of the NFL draft. To me, that was a mistake. I think he's a home run hitter. I definitely think he's going to play well. He's going to score a lot of points. But I think if you're the Giants, I think you had to go quarterback, and they didn't. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out as time goes on. So they did go with Barkley, and Barkley has got a tough test ahead of him. And with this Jacksonville defense, they ranked second in all. They ranked second in the NFL in total defense last year. Of course, we gave them the nickname Saxonville. And so it'll be interesting to see how he goes up against them. Plus, he's a little bit nicked up right now, is Saquon Barkley. So it'll be interesting to see how much of a workload the Giants do give him. And, of course, the big talk out of this is Jalen Ramsey and all the talking he was doing, including the Super Bowl guarantee that he's already made for this season. I think he is going to... it's going to be fun to watch him because he did a whole lot of talking and told a whole lot of players, had said that there were a whole lot of players that weren't good. And so it'll be fun to see if he is able to back up his words or if he gets torched this season. And if he gets torched this season, it'll really be interesting. So, meanwhile, Jacksonville, obviously, they're missing some key pieces, especially in the wide receiver. Corey, you've got Allen Robinson, who left. You've got Hearns, who left. Marquise Lee is out for the year. He was injured. He's on IR. So a tough start for Blake Bortles and the Jags. Yes, this team made the playoffs last year. Do they continue on? Do they do it again this year? I don't think so. I really don't. I think this team is good. I think they will be there, but I don't think they're quite a playoff team. I do, however, have the Jags getting the win against the Giants. You look at this Giants team; they still have a ways to go. They made some big acquisitions, especially getting Nate Soldier. That was big for them, but I still don't think that this team is quite ready. I still don't think that they're going to make a lot of noise in the East this year, especially with the Eagles in there. And in a couple of years, I think this team will be fine, but I don't think their time is now. I've got the Jags beating the Giants on Sunday. That will do it for part one of this video, and in case you don't watch part two, don't forget to like the Jam Sports Show page on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, links as always are down in the description. And I am Jonathan Mosette for Jam Sports 100, the JM Sports Show, and I will hopefully see you guys in part two in just a moment.